Hello again, and what is hip, and welcome to another collection video. Today I'm going to be showing off my Nintendo 3DS collection, and I'm recording this on Hallows Eve, so happy Hallows Eve or Halloween to everybody, depending on when I decide to upload this. Yeah, the Nintendo 3DS was probably my second favorite handheld system of all time, right next to the Game Boy Advance SP. When the Nintendo DS came out, for some reason it never grew on me. I was not the biggest fan of the Nintendo DS, but when the 3DS came out, things completely changed. I actually really liked the 3D effect. The 3DS was the first system I bought with my own money. I paid the full $250 on that system before they lowered the price, I think a couple weeks or a month later, to $170. So I have my original Ambassadors 3DS, which has all the 20 free virtual console games that they gave out to people who got ripped off and spent the full $250. But yeah, as you can see, I have a pretty sizable 3DS collection. 90% of these are all games that I picked up as a kid and through my teenage years, and basically while the 3DS was still out. I haven't picked up a bunch of 3DS games since it was discontinued, but the 3DS is one of the interesting systems that it was with me at the end of my childhood through the beginning of adulthood. So that's when I have a little more spending money. So that's why I have, a significant amount more of 3DS games than compared to like the Wii or the Nintendo DS. This is where, my adulthood really started. So in a way, the 3DS kind of said farewell to my childhood and introduced me to my adulthood. So it's a special system in that way, and I'm sure a lot of other people in this community kind of have similar experiences with that. So it's pretty cool. But let's just get started right away. Here we got The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask 3D, and I actually have not played this too much. This is one of the purchases I made after the 3DS was discontinued, and I found it for cheap at an expo, so I decided to pick it up. I remember playing the 64, the original version, and just hating the 3-day time limit. I mentioned that in a couple videos before. There's something about time limits that give me anxiety, and so that's why I never got too far in this game, but I'm hoping to maybe delve back into this at some point. Where am I going to put this? I'll just put it right down there. Minecraft for the new Nintendo 3DS. I picked this up when I was working at Target, and it was like $5 with my discount, and it was on clearance. And I thought, for $5, it's kind of cool that it's only for the new Nintendo 3DS. It's the only reason why I bought it. I've never opened it. I don't plan on doing that. Dragon Quest VIII: Journey of the Cursed King. Now, I remember when I was younger, I'd go into Best Buy when they were still selling PlayStation 2 games, and I remember coming across Dragon Quest VIII, the special edition that has the cardboard sleeve. I remember running across that all the time, and I remember being interested in playing that, but I didn't have a PlayStation at the time. I was a Nintendo kid. And so I've always heard so many great things about Dragon Quest VIII, and when they announced it was coming out on the 3DS, I decided to pick it up, and I put in a decent amount of hours into this game, and I thoroughly enjoyed what I had played. However, the problem that plagues me with Dragon Quest games is that I start them and I never finish them. It's been like that with every single Dragon Quest game I've played. Dragon Quest XI being the most recent example of that. But this was cool because, it takes great advantage of the 3DS hardware, and it runs pretty great. And this is a bucket list game. I would like to get back to this at some point because I do love the Dragon Quest series. I made my first video on YouTube was my memories with the original Dragon Warrior as a kid. So Dragon Quest holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm hoping to go back to this one day. And I think this is like $100+ game now, which is crazy. We're starting to see these price hikes, you know, not only with the GameCube but with the 3DS, and it's happening a lot earlier than I was expecting. Pokemon Ultra Moon. I haven't really played this. It was one of those cheap games, and you know, I kind of fell off the Pokemon series after Pokemon Black. I picked up Pokemon Sword and wasn't the biggest fan of that. I made a video about that in my top 5 most average video games. So haven't played this one, and don't foresee myself ever playing that. Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon. Now, I am a very, very big fan of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series. I had the Pokemon Red Rescue Team on the Game Boy Advance SP, and I played that game to death. I 100%ed it. I played it front to back, and I loved that game. And then I got Explorers of Time on the DS, and I really loved that game as well. Then I got the 3DS version. They had the Super Mystery Dungeon, and I think they had Rings of Fate, which I might have here. And didn't hold up to the originals quite as much, so I didn't get too far into this. I've heard Super Mystery Dungeon is the better of the two, so maybe I should go back and give it a chance. I'm now finally starting to dig into my backlog of games, so who knows, maybe I'll head back to that. But that one's also starting to get up there in price. Mario Kart 7. I absolutely love this gem of a game. The tracks in this game are so memorable. Almost every single track in here is a total hit. And I've played this one for countless hours, playing with my friends and bringing it to school, and it was such a great time. And this is probably the Mario Kart game I've poured the most hours into, right next to Double Dash. So in a way, I might even prefer this over Mario Kart 8, but I'd have to really think and ponder that one. But for those of you who are just starting out 3DS collecting, pick up Mario Kart 7. It's still very, very cheap, and it's such a solid game. Ridge Racer 3D, my very first Nintendo 3DS game. I think it is. And I'll mention the other one that I think might be my first. I can't remember which one, but I loved this game. This was definitely one of the first 2 games I picked up. And launch game for the system. It was the graphics. I remember being very good, and I loved the gameplay. I love the Ridge Racer series. I have Ridge Racer on the 64, and I played that one to death. And you know, this is it a little content light? A little bit, but I think you can pick it up cheap, and it's still the same old arcade Ridge Racer fun. So if you can find it for cheap, I highly recommend picking this up. It's a fun game, and only Namco can do it. Let's see. Radiant Historia, and this is the special Perfect Chronology Launch Edition. And this came with, let me just open it up here, with an art book and the game, and I think some stickers there. And here's the art book. I don't think this cost any more than the regular edition. I got some, so you know, just some freebie stuff. Radiant Historia is a game that I want to so badly fall in love with and beat, because I've almost been there, but I just not quite. It's, you know, it's like a relationship that's going okay, but there's just you're not falling in it completely. I have picked up and I have played this game so many times, starting over. I've probably started this game over 3 or 4 times, and I get to a point where I move on and I'm like, I'll play it some other time, but then I never end up doing that. I played it on the DS, and then most recently on the 3DS, and it's a great game. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic game. I've loved every bit that I've played of it. I just, for some reason, there's something. I stopped playing it, and I can't tell you why. I will go back to this because this really is a hidden gem, and it's starting to get up there in price. I know the DS version got pretty expensive there for a while, but I think this one may have surpassed it. But you know, it's a great Atlas RPG. It's only on the 3DS and the DS. If you can find it, please pick it up and actually play through the whole thing. I promise I will do that at some point as well. Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux. I have not played this. I managed to pick it up for pretty cheap. A lot of these Shin Megami Tensei games on the DS and 3DS, when they were originally out, were only like $20. They were budget games, and now every single one of them are $100 or so. But I've heard some really great things about this. Apparently it's really dark. I love the Shin Megami Tensei series. Right now I'm playing through Nocturne and I'm almost done. So I would like to get to this at some point, but after Nocturne I might take a little break because I've invested many hours into that game and I can only take so much death at one point. But it's a great game. If you can find it for cheap, definitely pick it up, but I know that one's getting pretty expensive. Kirby's Triple Deluxe. It's a fun little game. I got it for cheap when the 3DS was getting discontinued, and it's got a bunch of little mini games, and it's a fun game. I haven't invested too much time into it. It's not your mainline Kirby game. I think this is the cheapest of the Kirby games on the 3DS. I know Planet Robobot and some other Kirby games are getting pretty expensive on there, especially Robobot. I remember wanting that one, but I couldn't justify spending that money at the point. But this is a great cheap alternative. It's a fun Kirby game. There's just nothing too special about it. But hey, you know, it's a Kirby game. You can't go wrong with Kirby. Super Mario Bros. 2. This is still sealed. It was a cheap Target clearance bin thing. I have not played New Super Mario Bros. 2 other than a short demo when it originally came out. I was just kind of New Super Mario Bros. Out with the DS one, the Wii one, and the Wii U one. To be totally honest, I'm still New Super Mario Bros. Out. There's just something about that series that. Check out my most average video games. Find out more. But I mean, I've heard great things about it. So, oh, there's Radiant Historia. Is there any manual in there? There is a manual. Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. This is also getting a little up there in price. I got this a while back. I haven't played it. I love Pokemon Emerald. That's my favorite Pokemon game of all time. It was also my first Pokemon game. So I decided to pick this up, and I haven't played it. I already played the original, and I'm not too keen on going back and playing it all over again. I'm waiting for a new Pokemon adventure that can hold a candle up to Emerald and Black. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. Now, this is cool. This is another one of the only exclusive games for the new Nintendo 3DS. This was a very ambitious port, and the fact that they pulled it off is amazing. I got it to play, but then the definitive edition on the Switch came out, so I haven't played this one yet, and I haven't played the Switch one yet either. I'm gonna be playing the Switch one over this one. This was expensive for a while, but I think it's dropped in price since the Switch version came out. But This is one. Xenoblade is a series that I really need to experience. At least the first one. I played the second one, and I enjoyed what I had played. I got pretty far, but then I got to a point where I just wasn't feeling it anymore. But I've heard the first one is a masterpiece, so at some point I will play that. Animal Crossing New Leaf. Now, was this game changer when this came out? I had just come off of Wild World on the DS, and I was loving Animal Crossing. I still love Animal Crossing to this day. It's one of my favorite series. And when they announced New Leaf on the 3DS, I was so excited. And did it hold up to expectations? Yes and no. What I loved about the original Animal Crossing, the first two Animal Crossings, the DS and the GameCube, was that there was unpredictability. You didn't know who was going to be in your town one day, or you didn't know how a certain villager was going to react, and you didn't know a bunch of stuff. It was up to chance and talking with the villagers and reading the billboard and everything. What this one did, it did something very similar to City Folk, where you can go into this town area and everything is there. The people who would normally visit your town on random occasions, you could just go to that town and visit them. So it brought a lot more predictability into the series, which I was not as fond of, but it also introduced the most amount of customization, which was really great. And it's still a very, very solid addition, and I think I like this one more than New Horizons, believe it or not. But that's a video for another time. But this was, in my opinion, the last great Animal Crossing game. And it's still very cheap, so pick it up. Bravely Default. Now, this game reminds me of a game called Final Fantasy: The Four Heroes of Light on the Nintendo DS, where it's kind of emulating old school RPGs, and I really appreciate that for this. It's balls to the wall hard. It is so hard, but it's so endearing. The art style is beautiful. The music is wonderful. It's lacking a little bit, at least from what I've played thus far, in the story department, but almost in an old school way, like the NES Final Fantasy days. So it's forgiven in that aspect, and it's a really solid game. I think this one is getting a little more expensive, $40-50 or so. So pick it up if you have the chance. This was one that I had to wait a little while to find, since it's not too easy to find. The sequel, I think it's called Second Layer, much easier to find, much cheaper, but apparently that one was not as good. So if you can, find the first one. Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS. I like this game a lot more than I probably should have. It was the first time Super Smash Bros. Was introduced on a handheld, and I was in high school at the time, and I was a part of the band program. And so almost every week for a while, we had pep band gigs where we had to play at the basketball games and the football games. And so me and my friends would bring our 3DSs and play Super Smash Bros. On the 3DS. And I remember me and my friend Nathan played this game all the time, and it was the only thing that got us through those darn pep band gigs. I hated those things. But this was a lot of fun. I played a Zero Suit Samus. That was my go-to character. But there were so many stages, there were so many characters, and it was just a really solid Super Smash Bros. Game. I haven't played the Wii U version, but from what I've heard, it's basically the same thing. So this was really fantastic. But now with Ultimate being out on the Switch, there is not much reason to go back and play this. But if you're looking for a different experience. You can't go wrong with this. It's a very solid game. Okay, now this might be my first 3DS game. I can't remember which one was my first, this or Ridge Racer. But this is Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition. It has this cool kind of lenticular cover here on the front. And I remember when the 3DS first came out, there weren't a lot of must-have games. There were no must-have games on that system on the launch week. And so I just remember being in the store thinking, which one do I want? And ultimately I ended up with this one. And before this, I had never been into Street Fighter. I had played Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Sega Genesis that I found at a garage sale back in the day. And I enjoyed it, but Street Fighter 4 was kind of the first game in the series that I kind of dedicated a lot of time into. And I think that's because of the fact that it was my only 3DS game to play at the time. But I really genuinely enjoyed this game. It's a very competent version. The 3D effect is pretty fun, and it's the last Street Fighter game I've played. I haven't played any of the newer ones since I'm not a big fighting game fan, but I really enjoyed my time with this one. I remember going online and playing online, and there was this Street Pass thing that was kind of fun, where you had your own little kind of model character and he'd fight against whoever you street pass. It was kind of cool. But yeah, it was a fun launch game. I have no idea what this goes for now. It couldn't be much, I'd imagine. But with today's gaming market, who knows? But it's a very solid fighting game, and if you can find it, I would pick this up. Fragrant Story. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is one of the last official Nintendo 3DS games to ever be released. It was released the last 2 months ago, and they did a physical release. I played it. It's not a good game, but it wasn't advertised as being a full-fledged game. It's $4 on the eShop, I think. It's a tactical RPG, but really the only reason to get this is the fact that it was physically released. It has a really nice art style, though, and the music in the game is actually very good. And I think this comes with a soundtrack in the game. But you know, it smells. It smells if you you know, fragrant stories. I think mine smells like popcorn. I don't know, but it's a gimmick. It's a collector's item. That's all it is. But yeah. Final Fantasy Theatrhythm Curtain Call. I had the original Final Fantasy Theatrhythm on the 3DS, and I liked that, but I couldn't play all of it because there were spoilers, and I had not played all the Final Fantasy games at the time. I still have not. I got this because it was $20, and it was the one that had the CD in it. I love video game soundtracks and CDs. A lot of these right here are video game records, and maybe there's Final Fantasy VI. I'll do a video on that sometime, but that's the main reason I bought it, was for the soundtrack. Am I going to play it? Probably not. They have a Switch one coming out. Probably not going to pick it up, but they're fun rhythm games, absolutely. I'm just not a big fan of the art style. Kid Icarus Uprising. Now, this, I think, has gotten very expensive, if I recall. I haven't looked in a while. At least this big box version that comes with... so, it originally came with the game. Ooh, if I can pull it out. It came with the game. It came with these amiibo cards. I never opened mine. Look at that. There's even... I love how they did that back then. Just the inside artwork with the little squares. It's fun. And it came with a stand that you were supposed to put your 3DS on, and it supposedly made the game easier to play. I didn't play it with the the stand. I didn't. I think I did a couple of times, but this game is lovely, and it does not get talked about enough. It's made by Sakurai, the creator of Smash Brothers, and the graphics are amazing. I remember when this was announced at E3, we saw Pit flying out from the sky. Everybody was freaking out. I loved this game. The fighting system was so good. The weapons were really fun. The music was great. The graphics were amazing. And they need to make a sequel to this. They absolutely need to. It brought me back to almost the older PS2, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast days. Just that kind of style of gameplay where it's like a mixture of run and gun, but also hack and slash and platform. It was almost Platinum Gamesy a little bit. But it's such a good game. If you can find it for a fair enough price, absolutely pick it up. You will not be disappointed. But I think it's starting to get up there in price. So pick it up sooner rather than later. New Super Mario Maker for Nintendo 3DS. It was a cheap clearance Target find for $5. It's brand new. I haven't opened it. I'm never gonna open it. Super Mario 3D Land. Same thing. Target find. I actually own another copy. It might be here. Oh, maybe I sold it. Well, I had another copy. I played through all that. I loved this game. This was a lot of fun. It was the perfect mixture of a 3D Mario with a 2D Mario, and it was perfect for the handheld. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. Going back, it's a little bit. Actually, no, I wouldn't even say it's vanilla. This is a very, very good game, and I recently played Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U Switch, and it's same concept as this started it, and those ones were great as well. So you really can't go wrong with this. If you can find this, pick it up. I think it's dirt cheap. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D. Oh boy, I remember when this was announced, and I was so excited. I loved the original Ocarina of Time on the 64, but the main reason I was excited was because I was a lover of Twilight Princess, and this way I could play Ocarina of Time with more up-to-date graphics. And this is a very, very early title on the 3DS, so there weren't a lot of big name games at the time. There were some, but not too many. So this was one of the first real big hitters, and it absolutely held up to expectations. This is a fantastic remake, and the 3D effect was actually really, really good. I love the 3D effect on the 3DS. But this actually got expensive. I think it dropped in price, but I think it's going back up, which is kind of hard to believe. But I remember when this first came out, Nintendo had a thing where if you bought it and you registered it within the first couple of days of it releasing on Club Nintendo, they'd send you a free soundtrack. And I remember the site crashing, and everybody was so upset that they couldn't get it to work. And then Nintendo came out and said they didn't have enough soundtracks. I managed to get one, which is amazing. I still have it here today. That's just kind of a cool little piece of Nintendo history here. And it's so crazy to believe that this was over 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago. But if you can find this affordably, pick it up. An amazing remake of an amazing game. Star Fox 3D. Now, I remember this kind of got some average reviews when it came out, and I'm not sure why. I think this is an amazing remake of Star Fox 64. The graphics were really great. The 3D effect was amazing, and this does not get talked about enough. It's just amazing. In many ways, the last great Star Fox game that we got. pick it up. Absolutely pick it up. I don't know what it goes for, but I don't hear anybody talking about it. It's such a competent remake. It runs really, really well, and the multiplayer, I believe there was a lot of fun. I remember playing that. There's gyro controls, which I would not use, but yeah, just really great. Let's talk about it. More people need to talk about this remake. Dragon Quest VII: Fragments of the Forgotten Past. Another kind of expensive game on the system. Haven't played it. I bought it because it was cheap, and thank goodness I did, because it just went crazy in price. This is a remake port of the PlayStation 1 Classic, but they've kind of streamlined some things, because there's a certain quest in here that was really tedious in the original PS1 version, and they streamlined it. So I would like to try this out at some point. It's not the best Dragon Quest game from what I've heard, but it's the last kind of classic style Dragon Quest before the PlayStation 2. Ah, here it is. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity, and I'm missing my cartridge. I played a little bit of it, and I didn't like it. That's all I remember. Yeah. Andros Dunos 2. Now, for those of you who don't know, I believe this is the very last official 3DS game to be released ever. And unlike the other one, this one's actually good. There's some performance issues, unfortunately, but this was released on all of the consoles, I believe. And the special thing about this one is that this one actually has 3D effect. So it has something that you can only get on the Nintendo 3DS, which makes this kind of cool. Only 6,000 were made. I got number 1154. But it's a side-scrolling shmup. The original, I believe, is released on the TurboGrafx. I could be wrong. PC Engine. But yeah, I haven't played this. I'll probably keep it sealed, I know. But yeah, apparently the game itself is pretty decent, but not the best on the 3DS, unfortunately, because of performance issues. But still really cool to have. And last but certainly not least, one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Now this was a sequel to A Link to the Past, and this game is beautiful. It was so much fun with the gimmick of going into the walls as a painting and doing all of that, and it was so old school feeling, and the graphics were really charming. And this is another game that I believe does not get talked about enough. This is like a 9 out of 10 game in my opinion. It's really wonderful. The music is memorable. The characters are memorable, and the way they kind of present the story and the game itself is really fantastic. And I don't know, I think this is pretty affordable as well. This a must own, and I kind of hope they continue this kind of style here. We got a little bit of it with the game Link's Awakening on Switch, but yeah, a really, really fantastic game that also does not get talked about enough. So that is my 3DS collection. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for sitting with me and reminiscing on memories and everything. So what are some of your guys' favorite 3DS games, and do you have any kind of core memories that go along with that system? Let me know in the comments. But thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one.